Since the advent of rock and metal music, if not music itself, the concept of Satan, the concept of the devil, has been used as a platform in so many different ways with so many different variables that I wanted to tackle it in a little bit of a unique perspective and talk about Satan just as an object, as a concept in so much different types of musics, and where people are coming from to sort of differentiate what is devil worshipping versus what is not devil worshipping. And I should also point out, I made a video a while ago that got a massive amount of support, almost like 4,000 views on it, about my experience as a Christian metalhead. And a lot of people responded very well to that video because I am not the typical type of Christian in terms of I am not a zealot. I'm not someone that is overbearing or over the top with my beliefs, or nor do I think anyone should shove it in the face of anyone, regardless of what religion or background you are. And that, if anything, has made my relationship with religion and with music so much stronger, not only through testing of it, but just learning how different people think. And I think if you close your mind off and you don't take in different concepts and ideas from different people, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to be in a position where you're going to be narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned, and you're not going to have the input of why people think what they think. And when it comes to rock and metal, since their dawn, it has always been claimed that it is devil music, that it's the stuff of Satan himself, and I don't think that is necessarily true a lot of times. Now, with that being said, are there not a lot of bands that incorporate the notion of anti-Christianity, anti-religion, Satan in a very strong, very secular way? Abso-fucking-lutely. Ever since the church burnings, and even before that, there have always been people who have tackled anti-Christianity in a really strong way. And on the flip side of that, you have had some bands that have been very pro-Christian in a lot of ways. And the sad part about it is I think Christians get a lot different of a reputation than a lot of other groups get, because imagine the outrage, and obviously these bands exist by nature, there are literal genres based around it, but I mean, imagine if the average band hates Jewish people, is literally wanting, the Holocaust Part 2. Those bands are labeled as NSBM and are hated, and people avoid them like the plague, but it has become sort of this desensitized expectancy of anti-Christian beliefs in various genres, namely black metal and death metal and sometimes grindcore, to where we literally just expect to hear these bands talking about these things in very obscene and vile ways. And a lot of times it can be difficult to tell which bands are using Satan as a concept and who is using him as like a theological statement. And that's where the diverging point sort of happens. There's one thing about using Satan as a concept. There's one thing about the theological way. So when it comes to theology, it is sometimes hard to tell when someone is taking religion, taking the piss out of it in a way that is supposed to go opposite of it. And when it comes to theology, there are certainly people that believe in Satanism, that believe in classical theistic Satanism and devil worshipping and that sort of stuff. And ever since the days of Aleister Crowley, there have been people that have adopted that and ran with it. And there are plenty of people that really do see it in that way. Satan did nothing wrong. Satan was misunderstood. You can believe whatever the fuck you want. I'm not going to get into a religious debate here. But on the other side of the coin, there are plenty of bands that have gotten so much shit, and artists, for being pro-Satan, and then they have to go on the record saying that they are using Satan as a concept and not as something to praise or, smile upon. And one big issue that I think a lot of people cannot wrap their heads around is a lot of these bands that are not pro-Satan or pro-devil but put it in their music, that get the reputation of being devil worshippers, literally hate, despise, and don't believe in Christianity. Not as like, I don't believe in or support, Jesus or God, but literally they don't believe in the Bible. They don't believe those things happen. They don't believe in religion of any sort. They are atheist, or at best agnostic, but most of the time atheist, and they are using the devil as sort of a beacon, as a spearhead for a specific message that they are trying to push. Because the devil, when it comes to the philosophical outlet, has always been described and used as this form of outcast, as this form of pariah, as someone who was misunderstood, went against the grain, was cast aside, cast away. And so these people that are wanting a way to convey their message of something that is misunderstood, something that is off the beaten path, something that is strange or an oddity or an anomaly in the system, will adopt Satan as a concept and use that to propel the story forward, literally as if they were discussing like a fictional entity from a book, like it being no different than if they were talking about Cthulhu or the flying spaghetti monster or something along those lines. They're using it as an argument, as something for a debate, as opposed to glorifying and praising it. A lot of times you can see the difference in these two things based on the way that they write their music, based on the way that they story tell. You can see when someone is actively praising and glorifying something versus using it as a storytelling outlet. Now, on the flip side of that, you have theistic people who truly do believe in the devil and believe in Satanism in the same way that someone that writes about Christianity truly believes in Jesus and God. And the line in the sand is sometimes hard to define, and I think that's why a lot of artists and bands have to step forward and say, we're not fucking religious in any measurement. We are in no way supporting or condoning the belief in religion. And then you'll get a lot of people who sort of make the debate and argument out of that merely discussing or using either religious like figure or any sort of religion as a whole is outright condoning or glorifying it in some way. And a lot of people who are Christian specifically, or just any sort of religion that is anti-Satan, you will automatically sort of get this mentality where the mere existence of that figure being put into your music is a cause to not support it, to not listen to it, to completely disavow it, disinclude it from your listening habits, and see it as evil, see it as cruel, see it as vile, because you're using it in any facet. It doesn't matter what the context is, it doesn't matter what the reason you put that in your music is, it's just automatically you are putting that figure in your music, and that is enough for me to not want to listen to it. That's sort of the mentality of people who don't want to see it put in their music whatsoever. And you'll also get this on the other side. There are plenty of people that, regardless of how good or bad a band is, if they are Christian or have Christian beliefs, people don't want to listen to them. This happens a lot in like the black metal movement with a band like Antestor, which in many ways is indistinguishable from an average black metal band, but because of the lyrical content, people just don't want to listen to it, especially if you're like a hardcore atheist, because you don't want to support anything that has God as a figure. Now, I do think that's a little bit different because that is an outright pro-Christian sort of band and message, so you can't really misconstrue or misinterpret where that band is coming from. There are a lot of black metal bands specifically, which runs me back to the Outcast thing. It is a genre that was built up from the ground by and for Outcast, and so it's not hard to see why they took this figure that was associated with that abandoned mentality and put that into their music. It can be a little bit difficult to ascertain which side of the fence you are on when it comes to the theistic side and when it comes to the secular side. The hallmark thing that I would look for if you are someone that holds your religious beliefs close to your heart and you just don't want to step outside of your comfort zone, which is purely in your right and valid and all of that stuff, I would say look into the songwriting, listen to the storytelling, and you can oftentimes tell what bands are coming from what place, because a lot of the black metal bands that are very viscerally anti-Christian are going to be very apparent. And another thing, and this kind of is a little more fringe, if you get a band that is extremely anti-Christian, most of the time, they probably aren't pro-Satan. And that's where I think a lot of people get it a little twisted, because that seems like a contradicting statement. But what I mean by that is, if you look at a lot of these songs that tackle Christianity in a negative, violent, ferocious way, they will balance that out in a way that you can tell they don't believe in what Christianity stood for, what it stands for, and what it has caused throughout history in their eyes. And so they're not going to be pro-Satan. They're not going to be pro-religion in any way because they have such a negative view of religion and don't think it's real. It'll be a tackle of like humanity and society and very misanthropic, and approaching it in such a way of disregarding humanity and society and their influence on religion, saying that the way that humans built up religion in their eyes is something that is destructive, as something that is worth frowning upon, that is worthy of rage and ire and shame. And so you're not going to really be pro any religion when you have such a violent approach to it. Most of the time, if you have a band that is pro-Satan, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be something that is adamantly anti-God, or it's going to be adamantly anti-Satan. You usually will not see bands go after Christianity as a concept if it is anti-Satan. In the same way that they put Satan in their music as a figure, you will usually be able to tell whether a band is truly pro-Satan or not just solely based on the fact that they're going to go after Christianity as a concept and how it relates to people and the world and themselves and the world around them. It's going to be less about the notion and concept and existence of God, because they don't believe in the existence of a God in the first place. So they're using Satan as this bench to sit on and proclaim their anti-Christianity. So most of the time, if you want to differentiate what is real and what is not when it comes to the religious debates in music and who is real and what they believe in, I think you kind of have to use these context clues of where they're coming from. And there's a big difference between glorifying Satan or using Satan as a concept, in the same way that there's a big difference between being hypercritical of religion and the state of Christianity and what it's caused by the way of humans, and outright going against God and talking negatively about the concept of a God or the existence of a God. When you are adamantly putting your middle fingers up in the air and screaming at the sky saying, you know, fuck you God, you suck, you're dog shit, you did all of this, that is a lot more tangible to say, yeah, they might be pro-Satan, than going after Christianity and talking about things that has happened as a result of Christianity here on earth. Because chances are, if something is anti-Christian in the pro-Satan way, it's going to transcend the boundaries of just talking about the religions themselves, and it's going to outright be an attack and a fuck you to the religious figure that you are talking about yourself. But even in the blues movement and the early bluegrass and folk movements, the devil was used in a variety of different ways that wasn't just exclusive to talking about being pro-God or pro-Satan. It isn't just a metal thing. It isn't just a rock thing. The devil as a concept and God as a concept and the concepts of heaven and hell and everything in between that in the planes of reality itself has been tackled, has been used as a concept, as a storytelling device, as an element that is put into music to elevate the story and to provide some sort of context or flesh out an idea in a way that is tangible to people that are looking for a reason to resonate or relate to something. So it isn't just a metal or rock thing. This has existed since country music. This has existed since bluegrass music, folk music, and blues music, early rock and roll music, and even if you go back to very, very, very early music, the devil and God were big topics that were constantly put into music because religion is a very dominant topic and it pulls a lot of people into a lot of different locations. But what are your guys' opinions of Satan and the concept of religion in metal and rock and music as a whole? Let me know down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear it. We can discuss this, have a little philosophical debate. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.